Happy Monday. Good morning, everybody. All right. We're going to go ahead and get started because it is 12 o'clock my time. I think 10 o'clock you guys' time. And we're ready to rock and roll on how to blonde, curly, and textured hair. So, my name is Kelly McGowan. I am a salon owner and master stylist here in Houston, Texas. I'm at Kelly's House of Color on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me on all of the social media platforms by that name and that handle. I have been with Joico for 6 years. I am a Joico advocate and educator and have been working with them for so many years and just love everything that the products bring, especially when I'm coloring or dealing with textured and curly hair. So this is my lovely model today. As you can see, she definitely has really tight curls. I have already pre-done one side. So we're going to go over and learn how to create this color. It basically looks like an overall blonding formula, right, on this hair. I mean, you don't see a lot of dimension in there, but just enough for the grow out so that when it does grow out, it is nice and soft. I specialize in curly hair, cutting and coloring. I have been doing my own hair is very curly, and I have been cutting and coloring natural hair for 10, 11 years. So telling on my age a little bit. I'm glad we've got some people jumping on. If you guys have any questions, I can see what's going on. So please feel free to enter them into the chat and I will try to answer them as best as possible. So far, I always usually love to start a class with any questions and see if there's any areas that you guys want to touch on or any specific things that you want to know about before we start the class. That way I can make sure that I am doing my best to answer all of the questions. If not, we're going to go ahead and get started. So obviously this is my curly girl. I'm going to jump right in and start prepping her with Defy Damage. Defy Damage is Joico's bond repairing and optimizing system. So what's nice about it is it's just a spray. You don't have to reformulate anything. You literally are just going to spray it on the hair, brush it in, and then at the end of the service, after you've done toning, conditioning, everything, you seal it down with Pro Series 2, which makes an amazing deep conditioner, especially on your natural curly girls. Curly girls are going to be drier by nature. It's just the way that the cuticle rolls and folds around. So it's kind of the elliptical changes. So on one strand of hair, you could have this side as it curls around could be very porous. And then on the back side, it could be low porosity. So that's why with curly hair, you really want to make sure you're neutralizing and shutting down the hair cuticle with a pH balanced shampoo, conditioner, or deep conditioner. And the Pro Series 2 is going to be great for that. So typically on finer straight hair, you spray this in and then you brush it through. Well, I can tell you 1,000% if you brush your dry curly girl's hair, they're going to be very uncomfortable and it won't be a pleasant experience for them. So I like to scrunch in the product so that way it's always client comfortability. And you're not disrupting the curl pattern because typically there's going to be tangles and curls like to hide. So even when you're doing hair cutting or whatever, if you're doing a dry cut, when you rinse that hair away, there's some that are longer. So if you're brushing through, it could be very uncomfortable. So we always shake our can and then spray away from the face all the way through. And I'm going to be very generous with this because I want to make sure I'm touching all of the curls so there is no integrity loss as I'm coloring her hair. So, and then I just scrunch it through and manipulate the product into the hair. Okay, so I like to, when I have a big head of hair, and typically curly girls can look it can be deceiving because they come in and our hair expands, correct? So when you see this amount of hair and it's usually fluffed up because they're not washing it because you're about to, it can be very big and bold and can be intimidating. You're like, how do I even begin starting to color all of this hair? Well, I like to take a pie, right? Because I look at the head as a circle, a circular shape, and it is a pie. I like to cut my pie right in half. So 9 out of 10 times when I am coloring curly hair or any hair type or texture, I split the head in half so that I'm working on halves or quarters, and I go from there. So with her today, she's already halved. She kind of has that rockin' look that's pretty popular right now of the split head. And I'm going to split my pie in half, and then I'm going to split it again. So I'm going to quarter it. And that is going to help me not feel overwhelmed with coloring the hair. And I will be able to address each section fully before I move on to the next section. So I'm going to be using 2 different products today. I'm going to use the Blonde Life powder. If you haven't used Blonde Life by Joico, it is phenomenal. To me, it's one of the best lighteners on in the industry. It does exactly what it needs to in an efficient amount of time with not a lot of undertones. So first, I'm going to be using our powder, which comes in a nice bag. We're actually upgrading to a really nice tub, so that'll be great soon, eco-friendly. And I'm going to start with 10 volume. I like to start low and slow with curly girls because, again, their hair is drier by nature, so they're going to absorb a lot of the product and lift very, very fast. I think the biggest misconception with curly hair is that it's maybe because typically it can be darker hair, that it is harder to color or harder to lift, and it's actually the opposite. So curly hair typically lifts very fast because that cuticle is open, it's porous, and it's going to grab the product and move very quickly. So I like to start low and slow. I've already pre-mixed that, and it's just a nice consistency with 10 volume. Pretty easy, right? So my second formula, because I am going to be doing a highlight and then a teasy light, and that's what's going to give us this global appearance all over with like an all over blonde color, is a highlight and then a tease. So pretty simple, but it's the way that I apply it and move through the head that I think will elevate your craft. So in the second bowl, which is going to be our teasy light or balayage section, is going to be a scoop of the Blonde Life powder. This is my little trick. And then I'm going to take our Blonde Life cream, which can lift up to 9+ levels. So there are Tamanu and Manoa oils in here, which make it really, really nice and gentle. And it's got a great creamy consistency, but it is strong and it lifts very fast. So this is fantastic for painting, balayaging, or even in a foil. You can even use this on scalp to do bleach outs if you prefer. It's a really fantastic product. So I definitely highly always recommend massaging it because of all of the oils. They can sit at the surface. And so you want to, kind of like your toothpaste, really get it massaged in there nice and gently. And then I am going to put a pretty big dollop in there. And then I'm going to be using 22 volume. So if you ask what 22 volume is, Joico just launched a 10-minute color line. And in order for it to do its job of 10 processing and covering grays in 10 minutes, it needs a calibrated developer. Well, they created a 22 volume accelerator. So I love to use this for my blonding or any of my blonding services where I need a little bit of bump, but I don't want to use 30 or anything super aggressive. This is the perfect way to get there a little bit faster with a little bit more power, but not anything that would damage or hurt the hair. So that's a free tip, right? I like to make this 2-to-1 because this can expand pretty good. And so I don't want it to ever be fluffy, but I do want it to have a really nice consistency so that if I want to paint, I can. Good question. What suggestions might you have for shutting down process other than shampooing, removing lightener from area that hit ideal level and waiting for others to process? Perfect. I love that question because that was one of the things that we might get to if we had the time and one thing processed ahead of time. So I'm going to show you where I start to make that process easier, right? Because it's going to happen. Or when it does happen, how do I address it? I love the Liquid HKP by Joico. It is I have it right here. Excuse me. So it's a liquid reconstructor. It's literally liquid keratin, but it has the capability to completely neutralize. It'll shut down the system very quickly. Most of the time, the Joico products would have the pH level on it. It doesn't. You can see, if you can see my bottle, it's kind of crusty, but that's because this is what we use it for. So we are pulling those foils from the back, spraying it all over. Then we love the new From Our gloves. Those are amazing. Or just a microfiber towel and hitting it and just removing that lightener. And this will stop the lightener from processing. And so you can allow the other foils to get to the level that you're needing to. Also, by starting in the back, or keeping all of your foils that you're starting with first in the back, it allows you to, if you have the ability in your suite or whatever, you can rinse that back section first and then let this top section finish processing. So I love that you asked that, because a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today, especially with curly hair, is how to efficiently lift the hair in a way that if you need to remove it, you can. So some of the tips and tricks that I'm sharing with you today will hopefully help you in that area. So you can see the combination of the powder and the cream together. It makes a really nice formula for painting. I am going to be putting everything in a foil, so she'll be completely foiled up, ready to go, which I think makes things nice and easy. And that way you can get that consistent lift on everything. pH, acidity, unknown on that product. Yeah, I believe it's right at neutral. So it's going to be right at like the 6.5 or 7 pH on the liquid reconstructor, but I will double check that for you and maybe reach back out to Donovan so that you guys could get that exact formula or pH. So it's a little thick. It will puff up. I'm going to add just a splash more of 22. So it's about 2-to-1 ratio with the developer. Thank you for that question. I love a very interactive class. I think it makes the best productivity for both you and I. You're going to get the most out of your class. It's amazing that they put these classes on for you guys. And so asking the questions really allows you to get the most for your time. And we know that time is money. Okie dokie. So I've got both of my products mixed. I'm pretty happy with the consistency. And we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So again, with the curly hair, we're going to whole head, we're going to split this pie in half. This is my other half. And then I'm going to jump right in to my back section. And again, I'm starting in my back section because I want to be able to rinse or remove the color and the product easily if I need to, if this finishes processing before I'm able to get to this side. The other thing that I'm going to do, let me clip her pre-done section out of the way. I'm a very organic stylist, if you will. I work pretty naturally with the curve of the head. I work, I'm not very OCD with my clips and all of that. I think it takes too much time. And for me, time is I just want to work efficiently. So a lot of the things you see me doing are going to be just pretty freestyle. So I'm going to clip that away. My other parting here is going to be my fourth, right? And I'm going to go from the back of the ear up to the apex of the head. Nothing too terribly complicated right there. What this is doing is now I'm going to start having little small triangles all throughout my head. I love to color in triangles, and I love, especially curly hair, and I love to cut in triangles. This allows the round shape to really expand and create a beautiful shape in color and cutting. So I'm going to clip this away now. And now, typically, most people would start on the bottom of the hair to start their color process. I'm actually going to start up here at the top. This is the coldest part of the head. And so it's going to take the longest to process. So I'm going to start here and then work my way down. This is by the body, it's by the neck. It is the warmest part of their body, around their neck and then up here on their head. So I will put my foil in here last in this section because it's going to get all of that body heat and heat up quickly. I hope that makes sense and it is understanding for everyone. So at the top, the nice thing with curly girls is that they are usually their hair is very forgiving as far as the color goes. I want a really nice, bold and bright weave right up here. So this is going to be my first highlight. And I am, let me get that guy out of there. I love doing weaves, even on curly girls. A lot of people, slices are great. Slices are great on curly hair because we know that the curls expand. But for a very dimensional and diffuse look, I still like to do a big weave. So if she's got big curls, like big, juicy, round curls, I will do a big, thick weave. If she has a finer curl, I'm going to do a finer weave. But here's the key. It's to not go too fine, right? Like not like a super fine micro baby light, because then the color gets lost in the hair and it can actually look more frosted than it would ribbony. And 9 times out of 10, the curly girls want to see a ribbony look in their curls. So if you can see here, that's my first weave. And that's going to go right on top of this section, and it's going to go right to the scalp. And I'm going to be using my 10 volume powder for this. I always like to get the hair out of the way. Again, with curly hair, there's a lot going on and it can get pretty messy really quickly. So I like to always take my brush vertically and apply the product. I hope everyone can see that. And saturation is going to be really key here. If this is her natural level, she says she doesn't have any box color and color on her hair. We always are like that. That's to be determined in the foil, right? But let's say she's being honest and telling the truth. This is a level 5, 6 in some areas. The 10 volume, starting off slow with 10. If you're a fast foiler and you feel like you can get through this quickly, you could totally use 20 or 15. But because I'm demonstrating this and I want to keep her hair healthy, I'm going to start with a lower of 10. Okay, and then I'm still going to do a weave here. This is where she is going to get a tease, okay? So I'm just going to do one push, which is nice with curly hair. You don't have to spend a ton of time back combing or teasing. And so it's literally one push all the way up. And this is where I am going to use my 22 volume Blonde Life cream and Blonde Life powder. Again, I'm going to go in vertically and just paint all the way up to the top of my tease. I really want to make sure I'm not hitting any of that tease, because then if she ever does blow her hair out and this is for any texture or curl pattern hair, it'll look spotty. It won't look like a consistent smooth line. So there's that. Again, saturation is really important, and the width of the hair is really important. So we want to take baby fine sections because we're maximizing our blonde and our lifting. If we were just doing like a fun ribbony to create dimension in the hair, I could take bigger sections, hit it with 20 volume, make sure it's fully saturated, and go from there. But because we want this all over really bright, bold color, I want to take finer sections and saturate properly so we get maximum lift. If you don't, those drier sections in that curl pattern, like I talked about earlier, are not going to get hit with product, and you'll have what back in the day called a holiday or a dark spot, and it will be very noticeable in the hair. The other thing too with lightening curly hair that I think is really important, especially the tighter the curl, the more you go into shrinkage, and the more shrinkage that client has, if you just do a highlight on hair that shrinks up really tightly, you're going to be able to see exactly where you put the highlight. So it creates a map because that shrinkage goes back and you can literally see the lines in the hair. So that's why I created this technique, and so that you're able to create a more global, lighter look. Now, if you want more dimension in the hair versus it looking all over, you could only paint the ends of the hair, and in that way you have the variations of the curls. So another little tip with getting through curly hair, because there are going to be tangles, the friction of the hair creates tangles on any hair really, but especially curly hair, is instead of going through and ripping through, I am always telling people to just spread the hair. Spreading it is going to be much more gentle, and it's not going to hurt as bad than taking a comb or a brush and trying to detangle it in the moment. So she's really dry right here, which is typically the general consensus for curly hair, is they're going to have a real dry spot back here. So I will maybe use some oil to get through it if I'm feeling like she needs to be hydrated in the moment, taking some oil in my hands and working it through. That's a nice little gentle application for your clients, and then they're going to really feel like you're taking care and caring for their hair. So I've done my tease there. I'm going to go back and do my weave with my Blonde Light 10 volume. Vertical sections, really going up in there, making sure I get the hair fully saturated. I fold it all the way up, and then I lock the corners so that they don't move. Move this down, and then I'm going to take a big weave again. I'm noticing that the hair is getting a little tangled, so I'm taking my comb further out, and then I will separate right in through here. I wanted to keep her hair in this natural state because I think it's important to know how to address the curls and how to address these issues as they arise. So this is my tease. So I'm going to go back in through here and do one push and get it up there. As you can see, I'm doing a more diagonal back, or diagonal forward, I apologize, sectioning as I move through this section of my pie. Are there any other questions so far? Really making sure I get that product on there and saturated so it has the ability to move through the entire hair shaft. Lock in the corners. That goes up. All right, I'm going to take another diagonal forward section. And really this is going to be, because I think I'm going to do two weaves right here. This section is very dehydrated, and so I am an advocate for giving the hair what it needs. And I think it could do better with a little bit more of a less highlighted at the root section, because if it's dehydrated, what is that going to tell me? That hair is going to shrink up quite a bit. So I already know that this little spot is really going to shrink up, so I don't need highlights all the way to the roots. And I'm going to be a little bit more forgiving to the hair. I'm painting again with that 22 volume. Clipping it away. Now I'm going to do a weave. Now this is where the hair is the widest. Your section is the widest. You can definitely come in here and start to do these little triangles, correct? You can place a diagonal back right here because this is going to fall forward. They usually are pushing all the hair forward. And even if you push it back, you get that nice little highlight here. So I'm going to go ahead and place a diagonal back highlight here, and then continue working down and around. I don't want to move it too far away. Flip it the other way. Sometimes I can get it around the face that way, but it wasn't allowing me with the foils. All right, I'm going to take my 10 volume. And apply this here. Can you guys see? A great way to understand if the hair is curly, or I apologize, fine, medium, or coarse, is to take one strand of hair and roll it between your fingers. If you cannot feel it in between your fingers, that hair is fine. If you can feel it slightly, the hair is medium. And if you can really roll that ball back and forth, then it's coarse hair. Knowing that is important because then it tells you you're going to know how to move forward with the hair. With highlighting, coloring, products to use in the hair, styling, all of the above. This is my weave with 10 volume, and I'm going to place it right at the root. Moving along so we can try to get through the whole head before we run out of time. This is going to be, again, I'm going diagonal forward. This is going to be a tease. So I'm going to take this here and push it up. One push. And then this is my 22 volume with Blonde Light Cream and a scoop of powder. I love that combination. It is very, very nice to paint with. We're still doing lots of painting and even teasy lights. I don't think the balayage baby light look is going anywhere anytime soon. It's still very popular. Again, diagonal forward. I'm going to take a nice weave and I'm going to push her head down and save my neck. Getting right up there to the scalp, 10 volume Blonde Light powder. Painting it all the way through, making sure it's fully saturated on the ends so we get a clean lift all the way through. I also really love to do vertical sections on curly hair. If you are trying to create that ribbon look, I will take vertical sections all the way through. I actually have another live on joico.com, and I call it the windmill technique, and I'm literally laying foils back and forth all the way through, so it creates that vertical long ribbon effect. Let's see, what did I stop with? That's a weave. Okay, now we're gonna do another tease. The tease is really going to help diffuse the look. What's great about curly hair is this is going to take you quite a bit of time, typically on a curly head client, But the nice thing is that their maintenance is going to be very low for a long time. So they'll be able to, because curly hair grows out and not down. So it's very hard for them to see their roots as it continues to grow down. So you may have them come back in just so that you're continuously bringing them back in for a deep conditioner and a glaze, using a toner, so forth. So what will be nice about this is that they can rock this look for a very long time. And then you can just have them come in for a trim and a liquid glaze and a deep conditioner and get them on that sort of schedule. And then maybe this is a biannual hair color that you do on them. This is 22 volume in a teasy section. Really making sure I'm fully saturated in a finer section so we can get the maximum lift possible. We started at the top so that we could process the coldest part of the head first, and then we're working our way down. Just to reiterate, if you're jumping on late in the game, a big fat weave section right here. Taking my 10 volume and applying it in a vertical section so we get a soft blend. I think it's so important to do pretty highlights in the foil. I think we've gotten used to doing shadow roots, and so we can create whatever we want in the foil, but I'm like, no, still make it pretty in the foil. That way you're guaranteeing yourself. This is going to be my teasy section. We're going to push it forward. Once you do this, the nice thing is once she's pre-lifted, you can really create whatever color after this that you would want, because she is ready for whatever tone. I'm going to take my weave. Put it on right in there. Take my 10 volume, blonde light powder. Make sure I'm not getting it on that foil. We don't want any bleeders. I don't know if I'd call that a bleeder because it's just from the lightener laying on the foil. But regardless, if you get it on there, it'll definitely create a spot in the hair. You can see with curly hair, what is nice about having curly hair is when you see where it's at, where it lays is where it's going to be. So the way that we're pivoting this around this head, you see this nice pivot, it is going to lay out. So all this color is going to come out of the head, and you'll see it like this, how it's just big and bold, and you see all of the color and the different variations, right? You can look in there and see that there's depth from teasing and doing the different highlights. But as she wears it out and the curls, the crown of her head, you get all of that beautiful color. So we've just got a few more foils in this section, and then we go to the other part of our pie, of our quarter. Tease here. This is where the heat is really going to be. So that's way too big of a section there. Do a little weave. There we go. And then push. And that push, if you can see how thin it made it. So now it's like the newspaper where you can read through it. We all know that saying. And you can apply that there. make sure you guys can see. And depending, this is a raw lift as well. I have not glazed that section of the hair. So we can definitely talk about toners if you guys have any questions. I'd love to know how many of you use Lumishine liquid toners or the liquid glazes, if anyone is familiar. One of my favorite things to do is create really custom formulas. Oh, it is so quiet this morning. All right, 10 volume goes in my highlighted section here. And I'm gonna do another little weave, and then I'm gonna do a baby highlight right at the nape, because if she does ever pull her hair up, which I'm in Houston, it's hot, most people are pulling their hair up and getting it out of the way. I want there to be a nice little sliver of brightness through there. So here, I'm gonna take another diagonal forward section, making sure I am literally just going to leave out the prettiest little weave. So I'm gonna have you, ma'am, put your head down. I'm gonna go ahead and take my weave out. That's perfect. You guys can see it. See that little weave? That's going to be for her hairline. So I'm gonna leave that out. That's what's going to be painted as a highlight, go all the way to the root. And then this is going to be my tease. And move it this way because this is a shorter hair, so gives me more grace. Move the longer over. Taking my 22 volume. Now you could always do a tip out if you did not need to do as much lightening as this. You could definitely foil the entire head, and then whatever is left out, you could take your formula and then just paint the ends to give it that more global look, but less of a maximum blonde appearance. There's so many ways that you could get creative. My only suggestion to you is that you definitely want to touch the ends of some sort if they have a curl, the curlier their hair. Because like I said before, if not, you will definitely see exactly where you place that highlight. And then unless they're going for that, I don't think it's a very desired look. Okay, here is. Okay, that is gonna lay right there on her nape and get nice and toasty so that we can get some good lift. Now, I just dropped all those down. It almost looks like a platinum card, correct? But it's gonna have variation and it's gonna be very different because we have a highlight to the root and a tease to the back. You can switch up your tease. You can do more than one tease. I just suggest not so many because with curly hair, that would be a very unpleasant experience in the back, trying to remove all of that tease. So I like to do just one push. So then that way I can take one of my favorite brushes is the Olivia Garden brush and just tap it and pull, and it gets that tease right out. We have one little guy here. This will be a tease because this was a highlight right around the hairline again. So one push. Making sure it's fully saturated. Okay, there you go. That's her little packet. Okay, so now we're going to our front section or quadrant of the pie. And I am going to do basically the exact same thing. I'm going to switch it up around the hairline a little bit, and I'm going to try to work quickly, but I'm going to start up here because this is the coldest part of the head. And I'm going to apply my highlight here and a few of my teases, and then I'll come and I'll start on the bottom so she gets really blonde here. So this, you want to do that just so that if you're in a time crunch, we all know that like sometimes we only have 45 minutes to process and so forth. If you don't have all of the time that you need with the client, it allows this part, which especially at the root and where the client is going to see their hair most of the time, this gets the appropriate blonde that it will around the hairline. The in-between can sometimes get lost and it can be forgiving with toners and so forth, but where you always want to have your brightest blonde is going to be at the surface and around the face. So that's why I love to start here first. And I'm just going to take my own advice and separate this so that it's not discomforting for this lovely client. So this is my weave, starting with a nice little small weave up here with the 10 volume. Right in there, vertical brush so we get a soft blend. And we want this blonde to be as bright as the blonde that will be around her face. And then I'm going to take another big weave. And this is going to be my tease. One big push. Get all of that hair out of the way. Coming in here and painting. Not going into that tease because I don't want it to look inconsistent. If you hit that tease with a lightener, it'll look like a bleed spot or an inconsistent spot. Another big weave here. And you can tell I've got this nice little triangle, and I am just going to come down that hair. I'll have to split in two as it gets to the widest part of the head, but you really are following the curve of the head. That's one of my favorite ways to color hair is by following the curve of the head, because then it's a custom color for every single one of your clients versus having a specific pattern that you use every time, because then it becomes a roadmap and it's very easy to follow by other stylists and so forth. Okay, this little guy, I folded him too tight. He's not flexible. Okay, we're going to take this and we're going to do a big tease, one big tease here. Hopefully you can really start to see what is happening here. It's not a very complicated technique, but it's efficient and it is successful. It'll get you what you're needing and what you're wanting to do on curly hair. Do you guys have any questions about specific curl patterns or how to get through hair in any specific way versus just coloring it? I think for me, the best way to understand curly hair is by knowing the texture. And that's why I said, if you know the difference between fine, medium, and coarse, a lot of times we overcomplicate it. And so if you know the texture, then you can address it based off of the texture. Very coarse hair with a very tight curl pattern, which you're going to be in more of a coily description, needs softening. So I love to use like a DD for that, which is our dimensional deposits, which is a demi line. It has a lot of conditioning agents in it, and I will apply that all over, even in a clear, just to soften that curl to get through it. The client typically loves that as well because it's more manageable for them as well. I believe where you're at, it's a little bit of a more drier climate. We have a lot of moisture here. So knowing how to address the curls based off your climate is very, very important. I lived in Denver for a short time, and I had to address my own hair as well as clientele's very differently because it was so extremely dry and arid. So we were using a lot of products with shea butter and really a lot of fatty acids in them, lipids, things like that. That's why I love the Blonde Life Cream, because it does have those oils in it. All right, I am getting to almost the temple section. Once I get here, I'm going to do the teasy light here, and then I'm going to do one more weave, and then I'm going to flip, and I'm going to start addressing it this way because I want to make sure I'm addressing around her hairline very specifically. So this is a big tease. Oops. One big tease there. That goes up, out of the way. Hope you can see. Fully saturating this section. Let me get this little guy in there. Okay, folding up to where my product is, locking in those corners, getting it up out of the way. I'm going to do one more little highlight here. This is going to be a nice thin one, but I'm going to try to get all the way to the scalp for a really beautiful variation. You can see that this one is a little bit of a deeper tease, and then this is going to be right up to that scalp. That is going to look very, very pretty with the hair once it's done. Making sure I get all of these ends. If the hair has a lot of low porosity, that can be difficult. So low porosity does not receive moisture, correct? So then what's going to happen, you can tell when you have a low porosity person is if you spray conditioner, leave-in conditioner in their hair and it just sits on the top and it does not absorb. It'll be the same thing with your lightener or whatever product you're using. It's very hard for that hair to absorb it. So if this is a low porosity curly girl, I'm going to really saturate and almost maybe adjust my lightener and make it a little bit more liquidy so that it fully saturates. If in the case that you have someone who has low porosity, apple cider vinegar rinse is like my go-to for them. I apologize. There's somebody mowing the lawn in front of my salon. So if it gets loud, I'll try to talk louder. So now we are around her hairline, and I'm going to start doing weaves. And I'm going to do double weaves, really fine weaves around her hairline. So when she pulls it up, it's nice and bright. And as that hair lays around her face, it's still nice and bright. So this is going to be, I like to pull them out, weave, weave, 1, 2, 3, weave. Really soft curls. Typically a curly girl is going to have a favorite curl around her face. And I want to make sure I'm getting that nice and saturated as well, so that she's very happy with her beautiful blonde favorite curl. All right, here's my hairline. And of course she's a mannequin, so she's got a funky one, but you can see here my really pretty weave. You could even make this a little bit finer, but typically this is gonna be your average weave pattern. And most people don't have this much hair around their hairline, right? Very rare. Really making sure I'm saturating and being very soft around her hairline. I want it to go to the scalp, but I don't want it to look harsh. So that's where that weave comes in handy, and a really gentle application of lightener around the scalp. You could always take this application here, and then if you want to, you could do a base, a root melt, you could do a shadow shift, whatever you call it, root break, whatever. You could also, if she wants to be the ultimate maximum blonde, I love to do base breakers. I think it's kind of a lost art, but it's one of my favorite things to do ever. And you could take a very gentle base break. You could use an ammoniated toner. One of my favorite ammoniated toners is the Joico TSB. And take that 10 volume, apply it to her roots after she's processed, and then run it all the way through. It's going to tone her hair and make it, TSB is silver blonde. And so you would really get a beautiful toning effect and shift her roots just a little bit. So that's another really great way to maximize your blonde color formulas, is to do base bumps or base breakers, whatever you like to call them. This is right around her hairline and her ear. It's going around her face. So it's a little awkward, but I want you guys to be able to see it. Again, I'm taking it and making sure I get this fully saturated. This will sit on and around her face. So again, we have heat with her helping lift and shift this application. Any questions as we move through? It always amazes me how quickly the time goes. If you can see here, this is around the ear area. I think this is really important as well. This also needs to be a really pretty weave, because regardless if they're curly or not, right here is going to fall right by that jawline. So even if you're not doing the maximum blonde, this is a nice one to make lighter, because it just sits and it brightens up that face there. So again, this is going to be a weave. This is my 10 volume. If it takes you more time to highlight, you could definitely change and shift your formula and go up to 15 or even 20 if it's taking you quite a long time to get through the hair. So now can you see I've made a triangle? I love triangles. I love little triangles in the hair because I make a triangle and then I take it away. So now I'm going to go right through here and I'm going to take that triangle away. And this is going to be a tease. Boom. And I am going to do 2 teases on that because I want a little bit of depth after we've made it so blonde around her face. I want a little bit of depth right there, especially above the ear. Painting on that 22 volume Blonde Life Cream and Blonde Life Powder. And I'm going to do another weave. And look at where that other weave sits right on top of the first weave, right? So that's going to be great because we're going to get this beautiful variated blonde color right around the face with a little bit of depth here around the ear. Give that highlight contour. That's what I like to call that. All right, here is my second weave around the hairline. Applying the 10 volume Blonde Light powder, fully saturating that, vertical blend, making sure those ends are really, really saturated. This can be a little tease here. And then we're going to do another tease on top of the 2 weaves. This, based off of this head of hair, this application may take me 45 minutes, maybe an hour, depending. If we're working with this head of hair, I would definitely be 45 minutes to work through and get it done very quickly. I've just got a few more sections here, and then she would be ready to sit and process. Once I get all of this in the foil, we can take a look to see what's inside and peek. All right, this is going to be a tease here. I'm actually going to bring this is shorter because this is her bangs, and then this is longer. So I'm going to bring the longer section forward so I get as much blonde in the front as possible. Does that make sense? Because if I stretched it this way, only the tip of her bang would get blonde and a lot of the length, her face framing. So I want most of the bang to get blonde. Okay, this is going to be, I'm actually going to do a weave right here because that was a tease. Blonde Light 10 volume. Vertical sections, getting this applied on. If the client has very thick hair and medium texture, we're in South Houston again, and I know depending on where you guys are, based off of demographic, I like to make my lightener a little bit more, never runny, but a little bit more liquidy, because then it has the ability to stay wet longer and really process and lift that hair. Okay, this is going to be a tease. Thank you guys for staying with me through this time. Like, especially on a day like today, it's so pretty outside. This is the Blonde Light Cream and Blonde Light Powder, 22 volume. I use the 22 volume from Lumi 10. It's a great developer to have in your kit, because it really helps get through. It's that perfect in between 20 and 30 when you're painting. All right. I'm going to do a weave here and a tease there. I can tell by the way this sits that this is going to sit on the surface of her hair. It's kind of the top of her bang. Everything else is going to sit up and out. So I really want there to be a really pretty ribbon of blonde all the way up to her roots. Getting that in there. This is the Blonde Life 10. The other thing with curly hair too is I really try to, unless you're painting, right? And then we like to sweep up for a gentle application. But with the lightener and foiling, I like to go with the grain of the hair and really push that hair down to get a nice straight seamless application. That will also help you with lifting curly hair. And in the shampooing area, sometimes it can get tangly back there. And so any way that you can help not cause roughness or friction will help your shampooing and deconstructing the tease. So this was a little fine weave that I'm using 22 volume on. And we're gonna do one more little tease here in this with this guy. And then that's it. Finito. So this is a pretty transformative application. This is definitely going to change the way this client's hair looks and feels, obviously, because we went from being a level 6, maybe a little level 5 in certain areas, to being a level 8 and a level 9 in some areas. So it is definitely going to change her hair and how it looks. So you want to charge appropriately. You want to make sure you're taking the time to really apply and get a very beautiful application. So that way, if you're at the bowl, you don't have to use as many products to like correct any mistakes. So let's go ahead and take a peek. It's to see what her level is lifting from this top section, right? Because we started up here. She doesn't have body heat, obviously, but this was our very, very first foil, correct? And I went down this section and then I went down this section, right? So it's like the 2 pies. This was 10 volume. Wow, she's already pretty light. So you can see I did pretty good. We're at an hour. So she's lifted beautifully. I would obviously let this continue lifting, but let's say we were happy with this right here. That is where I would take my little glove, remove the product, spray in the HKP, and go from there. And then I could set it aside through the section. Let's see what the bottom foil looks like. Oh, wow. That's pretty good as well. I don't know if you guys can see that. See? So typically the fact that she's moved this fast is pretty amazing. Great products can do that. So this would, if this is how it looks now on a cold shaft with no body heat, we know that this would match this already here. So we could totally take her back and rinse this and just get all of the lightener off of there. You could even add a little bit of conditioner if you wanted to. I wouldn't do the Pro Series 2 yet because Pro Series 2 is for the final application, but we could rinse this out, wait for the rest to process, or, you know, you would be doing the whole head. So you'd rinse the back out, wait for the front. And then in the meantime, you could choose your toner or your glaze. I would say, let's go big and, you know, why not? And I would do a base bump on her. So I would probably use my TSB formula once she's all processed and rinsed out, so we could get her even lighter roots with even blonder ends. The TSB is going to help shift the blonde just another half level. And it's also going to tone with a silver formula. So it would just make her feel really, really blonde and bold, which your client is going to love, because if she's coming in for this look, it's a transformative application. I hope that you guys learned something and got something from this, and enjoyed the time that I spent with you here. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me at Kelly's House of Color. I enjoyed myself thoroughly, and I hope that you all have a wonderful day and good speed. Thank you.